Well guys, it's time for My Hero Academia chapter 181, and as we know from last week, Gentle surrendered to UA. He realized he was way in over his head, especially given that La Brava didn't really deserve the punishment that both of them would otherwise get if they told the exact truth. Now what I found really interesting, well at least one of the things that I found really interesting was that Hound Dog, obviously he had tracked these three people, Deku, La Brava, and Gentle, all the way through their fight. He didn't really know who they were and what they were doing. All he could really tell was that they had deviated from the original path that they were on, meaning that obviously these people, whoever they were, according to Hound Dog, something seemed out of place because, well, first they actually deviates from the original path at quite a fast pace, I would say, and then suddenly they stop. And, he didn't know if it was a lost child, he didn't know if it was something else, some evildoers, it could be really anything. So obviously he dispatched a search party, including him and a couple of Ectoplasm's clones to, scout, to go and actually confirm what these three people were doing and so on and so forth. But when they arrived, only two people could be seen. Those people were, of course, La Brava and Gentle, and that is when we see Gentle surrender to UA because he realized, I need to come up with something now that is gonna make sure that La Brava is gonna be okay no matter what punishment I receive. So what I really found to be fascinating here is what Gentle says to UA. He actually comes up with a lie that he had brainwashed La Brava and that was his worst crime. Now, this could end up being a reason for Gentle to be imprisoned on a very big scale, because if they believe what he is saying, then he could definitely be facing some big consequences. Now, La Brava, however, is on a different page because firstly, according to Gentle, she's the victim, right? Because he had brainwashed her, meaning she's probably not gonna receive the same level of punishment no matter how you slice it. But then we have Deku, who comes in later on and says that they were trying to pull a prank on UA rather than what they were actually trying to do, which was terminate the security of UA and infiltrate the whole place. So Deku, he is not being entirely truthful with UA either, but at the same time, the reason why Deku isn't is because he kind of feels for Gentle in the way that he could realize. He could see how they were similar in a way. They have very similar sentiments when it comes to this fight and when it comes to doing what they were doing. In Deku's case, he was going up against Gentle when he found out when they were making a move on UA because he didn't want the festival to be cancelled because, obviously he wants ERI to smile, and in order for ERI to smile, the festival kind of had to keep going. That was the whole plan. Let ERI be part of the festival so that maybe, yes maybe, something in the festival can make her smile. And so he tells UA, well, he tells Ectoplasm and Hound Dog. He doesn't straight up lie to them. He makes it sound a lot less extreme from what it actually was, which eventually means that the festival will not be cancelled. So obviously Deku's plan kind of worked. In Gentle's case, of course, it was more about he was doing this for La Brava. He was surrendering because of La Brava. He was fighting for La Brava because when he found La Brava, or rather when La Brava found him, he realized he needs to make sure that this person gets a good life and somehow gets put on the right track. And by taking her in, especially given that she was the one who looked for him, he understood that that was a good way to actually put her on the right track, even if that meant becoming a partner in crime along with Gentle. So they both had someone they needed to protect in a sense, but the reasonings and the conditions were extremely different, of course. I think Deku's was a lot more noble in a way because obviously ERI, she had gone through a whole lifetime essentially of absolute chaos. Her entire life up until the present has been her in Overhaul's hands pretty much, because she was, as far as I know, taken in by Overhaul when she was so young that she probably doesn't even remember it. And now we don't really know how old ERI is. I would imagine like 7, 8 maybe at best. So let's say she has been with Overhaul for at least 5 of those years, right? And she's been enduring Overhaul's experiments and the way he is, and the way that he was actually going through with all of the shit that he was doing. You know, he was using his quirk on ERI, repairing her back to her normal state, so on and so forth. And now, you know, she doesn't even know how to smile anymore. She needs to learn. She needs to once again learn how to be happy and how to actually make a smile. And fortunately, that did happen. And that's something I'm really happy about, because at the end of the chapter we actually do see ERI smile, which is super. You know, I really enjoyed seeing her smile. I didn't really expect it to be such a big smile because of the fact that she has been through such a traumatic life. I imagine it would be kind of a faint smile rather than a big smile, but at the same time I wouldn't say it's a bad idea to have a big smile despite what I would have expected it to be. One thing in the chapter that I really actually found to be strange, and I'm not sure if this is a translation error, which was when Zero mentioned something revolving Deku, because when they said that Deku had gone missing, or they didn't know where he was basically because he went out to buy something. I believe he was gonna buy some rope, and he says, why would he go out to buy something on his own? This is something that I really didn't quite understand fully, simply because he's 16 years old, Deku. He's like 16 years old. Why wouldn't he be going outside on his own to buy some rope? It's not exactly the hardest thing to do. It's not like you would expect to run into some villains, especially not villains that would pose such a big problem, especially given how Deku said that Gentle was the toughest fight he's ever fought. Even though that wasn't really saying he was the toughest opponent, but in a sense that they had such similar sentiments, and you know, some things happened during their fight that just made it more difficult than previously, because it wasn't just about them, it was about a civilian that happened to be below them, you know, when they were fighting at the construction site and things like that. And then the fact that La Brava did boost Gentle's power to some extent. We don't really know how much. We can assume quite a lot, even if it didn't seem like a lot. But it's not really something you expect to happen when going out to buy some rope, so I don't understand Zero's reasoning here. I really hope it's a mistranslation in a way, because that would make more sense, because honestly what he said just doesn't add up. It really doesn't. Now, one thing that I'm really curious about is next chapter, actually, if we're gonna be able to find out more about the festival, some of the other activities that didn't really have to do with Class 1A, because I remember there were quite a few activities like the 1B play, and then there's the beauty pageant thingy going on with Najire, Kendo, Bibimi, I think she was called, the one who's been winning 2 years in a row or something, that Najire considers to be quite a beauty rival in a way. I really want to see the results of that. Not necessarily because it's important, because it's not, but you know, it's just a curiosity thing. I just don't want the festival to simply focus on what the Class 1A were doing, especially since what they were doing was like a concert, and you know, reading a manga, you don't really get the full experience listening to a concert, because you're reading it, and a concert is very audio based in a way. So I really hope we see something more visually appealing in the festival before this arc is over, especially the 1B play, as well as the, as I said, the beauty pageant, because those are two things that you can really, you know, look at and read through and get the full experience from. Apart from that, I think the festival has proved to be quite an interesting arc. I really like this arc as a whole. You know, there were a few chapters that I didn't really like, but at the same time, definitely not the worst chapters of the series or anything. It's just they didn't really meet my expectations, I guess you could say. As a whole though, it's one of my favorite arcs simply because of ERI. ERI is one of my favorite characters in the story right now, and seeing this progression up until the point when she smiled in this chapter was something that I really found to be satisfying on so many levels. Really happy she smiled, even if it wasn't the way I expected it to be. You know, it's still a good thing. I would like to know what you guys think about this chapter or this arc as a whole. I mean, we can assume the arc is pretty much over at this point. We might get 1 or 2 chapters more, which is gonna conclude the festival, I guess. Probably 1 more chapter if I had to guess, but you know, it's hard to tell really. Anyway, if you did, be sure to Detroit smash that like button if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you haven't already done so if you want to see more My Hero Academia content coming your way. This has been Chaotic Plus, and remember everyone, Toga is waifu, Toga is lifu.